We're back like we never left. This is NBA Now by Chat Sports. Chase Sr. here with you. So much to get to and unpack on today's show. NBA Summer League, NBA free agency, NBA trade rumors are hot around Kevin Durant as well as Donovan Mitchell. We're going to cover it all today. No matter where you're watching, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making Chat Sports a part of your day. We begin with this, and this is part of our audience build-up segment. We want to get the comment section flowing. We want to allow people to get that notification to pile into the show. So let us know where you're watching from. Here at Chat Sports, we have people tuned in from all across the globe. Where are we? Me and producer Coop, or producer Coop and I, to all those English experts. We are coming to you from the Chat Sports studios in Dallas, Texas. People already piling into the show. 75 people watching live, 18 likes. Continue to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. Most importantly right now, you see the question to my right. Where are you tuned in from? We'll give you some shout outs here because we love our subscribers. Jedi, South Philadelphia, grew up in Westchester. Shout out to 610 and then to 215. Shalom from Israel, Salem, Oregon, Slovenia. Dallas from Richard Lee, not far from us. Montana from Wade. Trenton, Ohio from Dylan. Hi, how you doing today? From Brandon. Brandon, I'm doing even better that you're joining us again on NBA Now. Providence, Rhode Island from Robert Bruce. Always so friendly to us here at Chat Sports. The NFL kid, we know you're a Panthers guy. Raleigh, North Carolina representing. But I got to take a 7-hour drive to Philly on Friday. NFL kid, why are you going to my home city? Let me know. Anthony, Philadelphia. Malaysia is here. Tyler, Texas from Ethan. Miami, Ohio. North Philly. Used to live on 19th and Cecil. Let's go. Donovan Mitchell trade rumors continue to be hot, and they're staying hot. We'll talk about that in a few moments. Before we do that, though, where do you think he's going to play in 2022? J for the Jazz, O for a different team. And if you type O, let us know which team you think Donovan Mitchell is going to play for. People are starting to get that question. We'll get to your answers here in just a second. But I'm also seeing Tyler, Texas, Florida, Miramar, St. Louis, Orlando, Wisconsin. Go Bucks. Love what they've done in free agency. California, Hammondsport, New York, Niagara Falls, Brooklyn. Now the votes are starting to come in. Dylan Williams typing in O, so too is Richard Lee, Rodney Ware, Wade DeHood, Colin, Richard Lee saying the Mavericks, him alongside Luka Doncic, producer Coop. Hop on the mic. You're a big Mavs fan.
Hey man, I'm in. They need a second scorer, need a second ball handler, so
I agree.
I'm on board.
Hey, you lose Jalen Brunson, you bring in Donovan Mitchell. The problem with Dallas, what do you give up in order to get him?
No assets.
No assets.
Yeah,
that's the problem. Yeah, unfortunately for Dallas. What's their plan B, though? Coop and I were trying to talk about that. We'll discuss it later on Mavericks today as part of NBA Now. Knicks from Amir. Nola versus the world. O for other. Big Mike thinks he's going back to the Jazz. I like the confidence there. Mr. Clean, Cleveland. Sign and trade with Colin Sexton. Colin Hassenstein's in the chat. AJ Green, Uncle Joe Ingles are going to be the keys to a championship. Love the Ingles signing for Milwaukee. O for Lakers from Dominic. Utah Jazz want to tank. Take on Russell Westbrook's contract. There you go. $47 million player option for this upcoming year. Who has been the best player in the NBA Summer League so far? Probably Paolo Banchero. Jay Nivy's had some flashes. Benedict Mathurin, he's fallen under the radar. After a little bit of a slow start, Jabari Smith has been doing it all. Chet Holmgren playing well too. Michael Simmons saying shout out to Chase. Shout out to Michael Simmons. Speed Demon saying Sixers. I'm not giving up Tyrese Maxey for Donovan Mitchell. I think he can become better than D-Mitch, especially on both ends of the floor. Much better defender already. Dominic, Lakers, but let us know, best player in the NBA Summer League. Who's it been? I just listed a couple of names. Let me know what you think. People are going to start to get those names in there. Trey Murphy, 3-and-D guy. Bolt from Look at Me. Jay Nivey, Dylan Williams. Paolo for sure. I agree with you, Daniel. Paolo from Wade. I'm with you. Before the Magic held him out. So we'll certainly see as the Summer League continues to go, which players can climb up the radar. It's mailbag time coming up in a few moments. Yes, sir, and yes, ma'am, because we have people of all walks of life tuning in, and we welcome all of you as subscribers here to us at Chat Sports. But coming up a little bit later, going to do a mailbag, hashtag NBA, super chat that allows you to get your questions answered. And I know a lot of you pepper questions in during the live show on the chat. But if you don't use the hashtag NBA, producer Coop will not be able to see them. So you got to use the hashtag NBA. Speed Demon, I was just bullshitting, Chase. Cam Thomas has been balling. Cam Thomas has been awesome. I'm high on him. He can be a really good scorer coming in off the bench. Hashtag NBA Super Chat. Even though we're not doing a mailbag until a little bit later, you can still get your questions in right now. We'll also talk a little bit about Kevin Durant. Golden State, they don't want to give up their young assets for a reunion with KD. We'll talk a little bit about that and then also take your questions on Durant as well. But in the meantime, who will Durant play for next year? Is it going to be the Nets? Is it going to be a different team? Of course, he's one of the best players of all time. So obviously, there's going to be a market at some point, even if there's not much of a market right now. You have to also have to factor this in. The Rudy Gobert trade really did reset the market. Now other teams are like, and the Nets including, if they're looking to trade a superstar for the Nets KD, we want 4 first-round picks back, maybe even 5, and we want player capital. So the Gobert trade, very similar to the Christian Kirk signing in NFL free agency because both of them disrupted the market, and after that, it's been a little bit of a slow play in both leagues. Blake Wesley is the best player in the Summer League from Paul Ryan. A little bit inconsistent, but the athleticism is certainly there. As for where people think Kevin Durant will play, Phoenix, Miami. Colin is saying Bucks versus Warriors in the finals. Dylan Williams already getting a question in. You guys are the best. After our YouTube show wraps up, once again, we'll be going live on Rumble. Make sure you join us for an after-hours segment. Donovan Mitchell trade ideas. That's what we're going to be talking about on the Rumble side of things, and that's why you follow us on the Rumble app. Head to rumble.com/NBA now because sometimes we put videos only on the Rumble side of things. Sometimes we only go live on Rumble, like today. After Hours, NBA Now, Chat Sports, rumble.com/NBA Now. Make sure you hop on and join us. Who's excited to get the show going? Type me in the comments section, and I want you to type me as fast as you can. Wade DeHood, Colin, Dylan, Carnay, Dylan, Buster, $1 at a 15 cent, Buster, Uptown Dre, Robert Bruce. Type me in the comment section, smash that thumbs up icon and like the video, and then we'll be able to start today's show where we have so much to get to on the NBA news and rumors front. Type me if you're ready to rock, if you're ready to roll. Producer Coop, he's ready to go. So too am I, so too are you. So let's get it. This is NBA Now by Chat Sports. Chase Senior here with you. We start today's show with the latest on Donovan Mitchell. Is a trade going to happen over the next couple of days, next couple of weeks? It's one of the biggest storylines now across the NBA, and we're getting you caught up with the latest. We'll get to Brian Windhorst and what he had to say about the New York Knicks' interest in D-Mitch. But first, in case you missed it, let's just update you on what's going down on the D-Mitch trade front. It all started with this tweet from Adrian Wojnarowski and what he said yesterday on ESPN. After Utah earlier shut down inquiries about All-Star guard Donovan Mitchell, rival teams say the Jazz are now showing a willingness to listen on possible trade scenarios, sources told ESPN on Tuesday. Asking price appears to be steep, of course, but in the wake of Utah's recent Rudy Gobert blockbuster deal to Minnesota, the Jazz no longer simply dismissing calls on Mitchell and teams who want to trade for him. Now, Donovan Mitchell, a really good, still ascending young player who had a little bit of a slip in play and production last year, not necessarily on the stat sheet, but from the eye test. Was he fatigued with what was going down in Utah? Didn't like playing alongside Rudy Gobert? They maximized their abilities as a 1-2 punch, potentially. But here are reasons why D-Mitch is valuable to other teams who are going to call the Jazz and ask them, okay, what do you want in exchange for the Spider? 25 years old, still really young, career averages in 5 years of nearly 24 points per game, almost 45% shooting, nearly 36% from downtown. He's under contract, under team control for the next 4 years. So for the acquiring team, you're going to have Donovan Mitchell on your roster if everything continues to go well, unless he demands yet another trade, but that's doubtful. And for me, this is what it comes down to with Mitchell. Is he a star? I'm talking superstar. A guy who can lead you to the NBA championship. Maybe not. But right now, with what we've seen now for a large sample size, he can be a co-star for a top-tier team. So we'll get to what Brian Windhorst had to say about D. Mitch around the corner. But first, another reason why Mitchell valuable to teams. Yes, he's been great in the regular season. We showed you the numbers over the last 5 years in the regular season. In the playoffs, though, this guy enjoys the spotlight. This guy enjoys the pressure. And he's shown, I thrive and I flourish in the game's biggest moments. Playoff stats through 39 games, by the way, that's half of an NBA season pretty much. Really good production. 28 points per. The assist numbers go up. I think when defenses break down, he becomes a better passer because he's thinking less about one-on-one ISOs. 43% from the field, a little bit down, but the three-point numbers a little bit up at 37. And we've seen this guy hit big bucket after big bucket. That's why a trade to the Knicks, somewhat appealing, because when the Knicks are good, it's good for the NBA. And then the team up, Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson. Could the Knicks be back? Maybe. But first, let me ask you this. Should the Jazz trade Donovan Mitchell? This is a really good player. They can get a lot back, or should they rebuild around him? Let us know in the comments section, T for trade or K for keep. As for the Knicks tie into Donovan Mitchell, there have been some of these rumblings over the last couple of months, and whether we've talked about it here on NBA Now on Chat Sports or New York Knicks Now by Chat Sports, we've discussed the fact that Donovan Mitchell does have some ties to New York through the agency world, but also his dad, a former Major League Baseball player, also works with the New York Mets. Brian Windhorst on the Knicks, maybe being the leaders for a Donovan Mitchell trade, saying this on Wednesday. This is new information. Knicks have 8 tradable first-round picks and a need and a desire for a star player like D. Mitch. Some people believe this is an inevitability. I think we're going to hear a lot about Mitchell and the New York Knicks in the coming days. So Marsh, my boy, he couldn't say that word. I got to say it pretty flawlessly. Hey, I love my boy. It's a hard word to say. As for D. Mitch going to the Big Apple, Mitchell, Brunson really intrigues me as a backcourt. I think it can work because their games are dissimilar. And I felt like Brunson was just one piece in the grand plan for New York. Did they have their eyes on a bigger move, on another move to bring in yet another star? I think so. Jalen Brunson, I don't think, could be a number one. But can he be that sidekick like he was for Luka alongside Donovan Mitchell as far as a 1-2 punch goes? Maybe. And going back to the Knicks' young trade assets, they have him on the roster. Do you want to part ways with R.J. Barrett? That would be tough to swallow and stomach. He's a really good player who continues to get better and better, and I really like his game. You might part ways with Obi Toppin, a high flyer who really turned it on last couple of months of last year. Emmanuel Quickley is a shifty guard who can make things happen. I like his potential. And in the NBA Summer League, who's been one of the standouts and one of the winners? Quentin Grimes, who has been shooting the three-point shot really well. The percentage is down, but he's chucking up about 11 shots per game from beyond the arc in the NBA Summer League up to this point. As for what Jake Fisher had to say about Barrett, and if you're Utah, Danny Ainge, obviously you want him back ideally if you're going to trade away Mitchell. Utah's appetite for Barrett, Fisher said, as the key ingredient in a Mitchell trade is unclear. But an unofficial BR poll over 24 NBA executives at NBA Summer League this week did indicate that Barrett boasts a greater trade value across the league, how about this, than Miami's best blue chip prospect in Tyler Hero by a wide margin, particularly because of Barrett's improving defense. And there's a point there. Tyler Hero is not a good defensive player, really good offensive player. But as far as R.J. Barrett goes, if you get a two-way wing, it's the most sought-after position in the NBA. So when you look at trade packages and you canvass them, Knicks, Heat, they make the most sense for what they're looking for, what they want, and the level of aggressiveness behind their pursuit. And no matter what happens, we're going to keep you up to date right here on NBA Now by Chat Sports. The best fit for Donovan Mitchell. Let us know. NYK for the Knicks, it would be awesome. Him going to the Heat would be a lot of fun. And if he comes back to Utah, people in the great state of Utah and around Salt Lake City will be happy that they have their franchise cornerstone remaining with the Jazz. Now, Today's show presented to you by Rumble. It's another platform that we put our videos on, and right now we have a stealth competition going on between Warriors Today, NBA Now, and the Lakers Report, so closely tied in terms of followers and subscribers. So if you like any of these teams and you want exclusive content that's unfiltered, rumble.com/NBA Now, you see the link down below. Could Patrick Beverley be on the move yet again? Now, over the last couple of years, he's switched up and changed teams a lot. And then he was a part of that Rudy Gobert trade, which sent him from Minnesota to Utah. And according to reports, multiple teams interested in Beverley as either a trade candidate or a potential buyout candidate. I think the big domino to fall, it's D-Mitch, because if you let go of D-Mitch, why are you going to have Patrick Beverley when other teams that are competing for a championship actually would really want him on the roster? Reported teams interested in Beverley up to this point, according to Bleacher Report's Jake Fisher, it's 3 here, but of course there are going to be other teams vying for his services. Los Angeles Lakers, it makes sense. Win now team with LeBron James about to be 38 in December. Miami Heat just came up short of an NBA Finals appearance, in the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, they traded for DeAnthony Melton, so that might be somewhat unrealistic, but they're looking to beef up the toughness on that squad, and P-Bev certainly has that identity. Make sure you subscribe to us here at Chat Sports. More on Beverley coming up just around the corner, but first, when big moves happen, we talk about them. And we've been live pretty much every single day of NBA free agency. Which other YouTube channels are doing that? Which other television channels are doing that? They're not. We are, and our content's the best. Make sure you subscribe right now. As for what Bleacher Report had to say about Bev, former Timberwolves guard has drawn interest from the Lakers and the Heat, sources told Bleacher Report. Philadelphia had been mentioned as a potential Beverley suitor with his past Houston experience and the Sixers' obvious deep Rockets connections, but it does seem unlikely that Beverley will now be Philly bound after they acquired DeAnthony Melton, a trade, by the way, that I really like. Now, Beverley is a one-time all-defensive player and has made the second-team all-defensive squad a couple of times. Really, really good defensive player who is passable offensively. Now, sometimes he goes in these ruts, sometimes he goes cold, and it's a tough watch. But he makes up for it with his impact on the defensive end, and last year, pretty solid. Now, the three-point numbers were down, but he has career averages around 37%. So if he goes back up and jumps back up to that figure, that's pretty solid. 9 points per game. Let's say he gives you that figure, 37% from deep, 4.5 dimes, and then a steal plus per game and a block per game. That's pretty impressive considering he's often outsized going up against some top-tier wings. As for his resume, too, it's impressive. And this guy consistently makes the playoffs. 9 of the last 10 years, he has helped lead his teams to the postseason. 2-time all-defensive team in the second team, as I said. All-defensive first team back in 2017. He's still playing at a really elite defensive level. And again, he can guard point guards, 2 guards, wings, and I like that about him because he's never afraid of a challenge, nor will he ever back down. And I like the toughness. I like the dog of Patrick Beverley. Stops in Greece, Russia, EuroLeague MVP back several years ago, and now, since then, has had a long and successful career in the NBA as a guy who had to be gritty, a guy who had to earn it, and a guy who just ain't never scared. Grade Patrick Beverley as a player. We're talking NBA 2K scale. Like if you could grade all the players in the NBA, how would you grade Bev 1 to 100? 1, he's terrible. 100, he's very good. I'll give him about a 75-80 when you factor in the well-rounded aspect of people's games. Let me know in the comment section right now, and we appreciate you for watching today's show. Okay, we'll give you some shout-outs here. I see Willie, Cruz, Sherwin, Raphael, Daniel, Team Money, Willie, Sherwin M, all in the chat right now. We had a $10 super chat that came in from my guy, Lion Fighter, big supporter of Philadelphia 76ers now. Chase, Sixers need a legit backup center. I'm getting worried, man. Real one. John, yes, sir. The real ones know my guy. Yeah, I'm concerned too because when it comes playoff time, like that has handicapped Philadelphia to a certain degree. Greg Monroe, DeAndre Jordan. I do think that Paul Reed can be a solid backup big, but do you want him being the backup big on this roster? If you go to a guy like DeMarcus Cousins, yeah, I'm not sure about that because DeMarcus is just lacking that athleticism following all those injuries. Put up decent numbers with Denver last year, had a couple of good moments, but I'm more so looking for an athletic big. Now, again, Paul Reed can become that if he's more under control defensively, where he doesn't commit 3 fouls in the first 5 minutes. Then I think his role as a backup can be a little bit more viable, but there's no question I am also a little bit concerned about the backup center position for the Sixers behind Joel Embiid. Back to your votes and your comments. Robert Bruce, 77. Kareem Brown, 77. Luke Burns, 76. Ared, 75. Nola, 70. Robert Bruce, 77. T-Money, 75. Cousins is out there. Yeah, I talked about Cousins. I think he has a role on an NBA roster. Just not sure I really like him in Philadelphia. Where's Drummond? He signed with the Chicago Bulls. 2 years, $6.6 million. Really, really good deal in terms of value for Chicago. So Lion Fighter, thanks for the donation. You want to send us a super chat? Let's get it. We'll be going live on Rumble after today's YouTube show, where we'll be breaking down a couple of Donovan Mitchell trade ideas with everything really hot on that front. So make sure you stay tuned for that and join us exclusively over there. How do you do it? It's very simple. You just go to rumble.com/NBA now. That link is hanging out on the bottom of your screen right now. Robert Bruce, where is Drummond? Yeah, he went to Chicago, as I talked about. T-Money knows. He said, yep, Drummond in Chicago. Raza, if we lose R.J. Barrett, maybe he doesn't sign in Utah and he comes back to us. Yeah, I would imagine it would have to be a sign-and trade so that Utah knows that R.J. Barrett, who is max rookie contract eligible next offseason, will stay with Utah for a little while and be their next franchise building block. So I think that could be a stipulation in that deal. A lot of questions right now about the Philadelphia 76ers, by the way. We're about to talk about them. If we have the resources for it, I'd say cool. Ideally, that'd be awesome. We didn't talk about it, but if we want to, cool. Got to be talking about the Sixers coming up next. Their interest in Beverley. Markieff Morris, who is from Philly, said he wants to play for the Sixers and has for a little while. We'll talk about that. And are the Sixers getting investigated for how they did the James Harden contract? His discount, is it being made up for with Fanatic stock? And Michael Rubin, who was a part owner of Philadelphia, no longer is, but was a part of the Sixers contract negotiations with Harden. So some fascinating stuff that we'll get to right around the bend. Good to go, Coop? Cool. Talk about the Sixers coming up next. Kareem, Melly D-Money, Mr. Clean, Jedi, Bo. So much left to get to on the show. For those of you piling in, we appreciate it. By the way, 52 subscribers away from 318,000 subs. If we get there, we can bring some people onto the show, take some shots, and drink some beers by the end of the program. So subscribe to the channel if you're watching right now and you haven't already done so, with nearly 450 people watching live. Without further ado, we're getting to some Sixers talk right now. Coming your way on Philadelphia 76ers now. Are the Sixers interested in a trade for Patrick Beverley? Does Markieff Morris, a Philadelphia native, want to come back to Philadelphia and sign with the Sixers in free agency? And are the Sixers going to get investigated by the NBA for how they did the James Harden contract with Michael Rubin on hand for negotiations, who used to be a part-time owner of Philadelphia, no longer is, and that $15 million pay cut for James Harden, is it being made up for with Fanatic stock? Fascinating stuff coming up here over the next couple of minutes. This is 76ers Now. I'm your host, Chase Sr. So we start off with Patrick Beverley. Is he going to be on the move again? Last several years, he's gotten moved quite frequently throughout his NBA career, and then he was involved in that Rudy Gobert trade between the Utah Jazz and the Minnesota Timberwolves. According to Bleacher Report and some other reports out there, multiple teams interested in Beverley if he's traded or bought out by Utah. So a couple of different avenues in which acquiring teams could look to pursue Patrick Beverley, on the trade market or on the buyout market in free agency. As for what Bleacher Report had to say about the dog, the former Timberwolves point guard has drawn interest from the Lakers and the Heat, sources told Bleacher Report. Philadelphia had been mentioned as a potential Beverley suitor with his past Houston experience and the Sixers' obvious deep Rockets connections, but it does seem unlikely that Beverley would now be Philly bound after they acquired DeAnthony Melton. Now, I don't think acquiring acquiring DeAnthony Melton takes Patrick Beverley out of the equation because I think that he would fit really well on this Sixers roster. They need defense, they need toughness, they need a guy who is a proven playoff player, and he's still in his early 30s with some good basketball left in the tank. As for what he did last year, pretty solid numbers. Now, throughout his career, he's been hovering around 37% from long range. Last year, numbers a little bit down, but off the catch and shoot, he can let it fly and be a solid three-point shooter. Obviously, what you want from him, it's the high-level defense against point guards, against wings, and sometimes we've seen him defend some forwards and centers because we know Patrick Beverley never shies away from a challenge. We're talking about one of the best competitors in the NBA today. As for his resume, it's been pretty impressive, and the journey has been pretty wild. Stops in Greece, Russia, EuroLeague MVP way back in the day. We talk about him being a consistent playoff performer and a peer. He's made the postseason on several teams, 9 of the last 10 years. Defensively, one of the best guards that we've seen in recent memory. 2 times he's been named to the second team all-defensive team and was a first-team all-defensive player back in 2017. So with the acquisition of DeAnthony Melton, who gives you a scoring punch and some defense, not to the likes of Beverley, but good defense coming in off the bench, do you think it makes sense bringing in Beverley onto the Sixers roster considering what you have on your roster and on your team, but also what you'd have to pay for him? W for works, N for nah. Let me know right now in the comments section. And if you want to explain it further detail, of course, feel free to do so. Could Markieff Morris, who hails from North Philadelphia, still works out in the area with renowned local trainer Chuck Ellis, be coming home and signing with Philly? So he tweeted that he wants to join the 76ers. It all started with Romp, who's a fellow Sixers YouTuber, took to the Twitter streets and said, Markieff Morris is still a free agent. Jokic really messed his money up because they were involved in that beef in which Morris hurt his back after there was a little bit of a physical altercation. Keefe then responded to Romp by saying, I'm a free agent by choice, kid. Nobody's stopping this show. I got you. I'm going to sign soon. Then Keefe said, after Romp come to Philadelphia, Markieff said, I've been wanting to come to Philadelphia for a really long while now. And this is interesting on a couple of fronts. They need a backup forward. You have, a couple of players on the team who are somewhat intriguing. And George Niang proved last year that he can be a good floor stretcher throughout the rigors of a regular season schedule. He can be very valuable as a starter, as a bench player who gives you a lot of offense. And in the playoffs, depending on the matchup, he's pretty solid. Now, lost his way a little bit against Miami and was a little bit overwhelmed by their length, especially defensively, and their athleticism. But George Niang is good. But if you can bring in another player like Markieff Morris, especially if he takes a hometown discount, then I'm intrigued by the idea. Now, last year he didn't play much because of the aforementioned back injury that really lingered for a long time. But career numbers, he's been good since he came out of Kansas. Him and his twin brother, Marcus, nearly 11 points per game, 5 boards, 44.5% from the deck, and 34% from 3. Although, as the NBA game has changed and evolved over the last couple of years, his three-point numbers have been more respectable than when he first got his start at the NBA level. Three-point shots weren't worked on as much, and because of that, his percentages suffered. But the last couple of years, he's been a solid three-point shooter. Could the new-look Sixers look like this if they bring in Patrick Beverley, they sign Markieff Morris, as well as P.J. Tucker, and the trade of DeAnthony Melton? The new-look Sixers could be the Philadelphia Pitbulls because, my goodness, those are some cats that you do not want to meet in a back alley brawl anywhere in Philadelphia or anywhere in which they take their talents on an NBA road trip. I kind of like the idea of a Sixers team that's been somewhat soft in years past, looking like this moving forward. Let's get a championship, Philly. We have you covered with the latest Sixers news and rumors, by the way. So before we continue to unpack everything on the show, subscribe to the channel, man. Less than 500 people away from 8K subs. We're bringing you videos almost every single day, every couple of days, and our coverage throughout the NBA draft, free agency, offseason, during the season, it's top-notch. Launched this channel about a year ago, and in that span, nearly 8,000 subs. YouTube.com/76erstv, or just hit that red sub button down below. Daryl Morey has found himself in the thick of NBA investigations before. Is the NBA going to investigate Daryl Morey and this time the Philadelphia 76ers after their contract negotiations with James Harden? So Bobby Marks was on the Low Post podcast with Zach Lowe of ESPN and thinks there may have been a violation during the Harden negotiations, and it involves a former owner who's good friends with James Harden during their weekend in the Hamptons back a couple weeks ago during that all-white party in which every single celebrity in the world was there, from the Kardashians to every single NBA player on the globe and every single rapper. So here's how the conversation went between Lowe and Marks. Lowe first started, I would expect the league office to say, hold on, let's at least take a look at what happened here with James Harden taking $15 million less. Do you expect that to happen? Marks, a former general manager, responded by saying, I do expect that to happen. And I'm out here in Las Vegas. It's not like I have confirmed facts or anything from the Summer League, but anytime, let's just say you connect the dots here, you have an owner, a former owner in Michael Rubin, probably one of the wealthiest American former owners, a billionaire, owner and CEO of Fanatics, just has the big party in the Hamptons. You've got all these NBA guys there. There's a relationship with James Harden already. There's a relationship with Harden when he was in a Brooklyn Nets uniform. There's no denying that. And now you have Harden taking $15 million less, where I was texting with a couple of teams and I said, what's the $15 made up with? Fanatics stock? And they said, maybe. So because of that, you connect the dots here. There's a little bit of a paper trail. You want to put on your investigator detective hats, you can, but this is somewhat curious, and I'm actually interested to see what happens. Now, it's interesting that Rubin was there, and when there was that report from Chris Haynes in saying that Michael Rubin, who just sold his ownership stake because he felt as though there were conflictions between him owning the Sixers and then the Fanatics wanting to get into the sports card trading business and the sports betting business. That's why he's no longer a part-time owner or a part owner as part of this ownership group. But I thought it was interesting that he was there. Now, obviously, he has a relationship with Harden as well as Joel Embiid, Daryl Morey as well. But did they have a conversation where it's like, yo, take $50 million pay cut. We can acquire DeAnthony Melton. We can bring in PJ Tucker, we can sign Daniel House as well. Maybe another free agency move is looming too. Let's bulk up this roster a little bit. Let's chase a championship because James, the Beard, you're one of the greatest players of all time. You don't currently have one. Take a $15 million pay cut, but like Tom Brady probably did with the New England Patriots with Robert Kraft, under the table, here's some Fanatics stock. Company's booming. It's going to continue to boom. You'll make up for those financial losses in the future. So there's that. And then let's just stop acting like tampering matters. Who the hell cares? When we get wild, wild west in college sports and professional sports, in my opinion, it's more entertaining. I'm here for the entertainment. I want to talk about it. It's fun, so let's ride and let's not be scared. Should the Sixers get penalized? F for fine, WC for who cares? Let us know. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. 76ers now pumping out the best Sixers content. And as always, thanks for rocking with us. Another reminder, we're going to be going live on Rumble coming up around the bend. Really good stuff to get to on Rumble only. Nearly 500 people watching live right now. My Holy King, Aaron, Daniel, Speed Demon, Danny A, all representing in the chat. Luke Byrne is always here. Christopher Flores, good stuff right there. Also, a lot of you have gotten your questions in. Going to be doing a mailbag here shortly. Got to use the hashtag NBA Better Yet Super Chat is for you to get your questions answered. Producer Coop?
Knicks should be fined for tampering for Brunson.
I told you to shut the F up here at Chat Sports when you said that, because you are a Mavs fan, and I apologize if you didn't like me cursing at you, but my point was, who cares about tampering? It happens and it's fun.
I know.
So it happens in the business world all the time.
They will get penalized, though.
Employees, CEOs, owners are getting poached by other businesses, but either way, that was a lively and colorful conversation. It's mailbag time. Hashtag NBA Super Chat us for you to get your questions answered live here on the show in front of an audience of about 500 people. During NBA free agency, nobody came close to our coverage. Thousands and thousands of people joining us on the daily basis. And to all of you rolling with us today, we appreciate that. So let's do this mailbag coming up. Get those questions in. Super Chats, of course, welcome. And subscribe, because if we get that sub number, we're bringing some people on. We're having some drinks at the end of the show. Welcome into NBA Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Chase Senior, coming your way on today's program, a news and rumors mailbag, where I take all of your questions from our loyal subscribers here at Chat Sports, and that's why you subscribe, so that you can join the show and you can join the conversation. We start off with this $10 super chat and donation coming in from Lion Fighter. Chase, Sixers need a legit backup center. I'm getting worried. Hashtag real one, hashtag John. Now, I'm from Philly. Lion Fighter is as well. The real ones know what that verbiage is. If you don't, Urban Dictionary. They got you. As far as a backup center for Embiid, they need one. I am tired of seeing playoff minutes of guys like DeAndre Jordan back a couple years ago, Greg Monroe. I thought that Doc Rivers was just out of his gorge, not playing Paul Reed more in the playoffs last year. I thought that his minutes much more productive than DeAndre Jordan. But the big question, yes, really good success at the G League level. He's been pretty solid throughout NBA Summer League. He's really active. He can make some things happen. He's not afraid to shoot the three ball just a little bit. I don't expect the numbers to be all of that great, but can he be the long-term or viable backup center who is the backup center behind Embiid? And then if he gets hurt, what's your confidence level in him? So on the free agency market, you're looking at guys like DeMarcus Cousins as other options at that backup spot for Embiid. We pivot now to this question from Colin Hassenstein. It's actually a statement. Bucks versus Warriors in the NBA Finals in 2023. I think it would be a terrific matchup. We nearly saw it this year. Wonder what would have happened if Chris Middleton did not get injured for Milwaukee. By the way, on top of that injury that he suffered in the playoffs, wrist surgery as well. So he's recovering from that as he's gotten banged up throughout the rigors of a long playoff schedule and regular season schedule. But honestly, you think about this matchup really quickly. Do the Warriors have anybody who can match up against Giannis? I don't think so. I think the Bucks have a legitimate shot at winning the NBA Finals. And producer Coop is saying Draymond Green, throughout the course of a potential 7-game series, are you confident in Draymond Green to guard Giannis consistently? That's a tough task right there. But Draymond Green, one of the best defensive players of all time. Dragon Swaggin, nice name right there. Should the Knicks trade for Donovan Mitchell? Ideally, yes. And I don't think that Jalen Brunson is a number one player on a championship team. That's fine. I don't think Donovan Mitchell is a number one option on a championship team either. But if you team them up, both of them together, does it make the Knicks very interesting in the Eastern Conference? And would it be crazy to see them mess around and win a playoff series or two and have sustained playoff success for the first time in a long time? Yeah, I mean, the NBA is a better product when the Knicks are good. It's also fun to talk about the Knicks when they're bad because Stephen A. Smith just loses his shit. But Knicks trade for D-Mitch. They have the assets in terms of draft capital. They have the players to trade for Donovan Mitchell as well. So they could put together one of the best trade packages for Donovan Mitchell out there. So I'm fascinated to see what happens in that regard. The other team mentioned, it's the Miami Heat. That's why we're asking you this question right here. Best fit for D-Mitch, Knicks NYK, Heat type MIA, Jazz type UTA. Let us know right now in the comment section. I think the Knicks are a good fit. Miami's a good fit. And if Utah wants to rebuild around D-Mitch, of course, he can be one of your franchise cornerstones. But if you're D-Mitch, a couple years left on the deal, do you want to be a part of a rebuild in your mid-20s when you're entering your prime? Dylan Williams next up on the docket. Any chance the Pistons move Kelly Olynyk or Nerlens Noel? Too many bigs on the roster. And they drafted Jalen Duren. I think Olynyk has value. He could play the 5 and the 4 and shoot the 3. I like Nerlens on a playoff team as a guy who's a really good athlete and can protect the rim and block shots. His offensive game is extremely limited. Now, do you have too many bigs on the roster? Got to factor in Luka Garza as well. I like what he was able to do in glimpses last year as a rookie coming out of Iowa, where he was the player of the year in college basketball 2 years ago. I think that Noel being moved wouldn't really surprise me. Some people had that idea once that trade was made so that the Knicks could make room financially for Jalen Brunson. So none of those moves would really surprise me all that much. I do think both players have value if it's on Detroit or a different team. Luke Byrne, Patrick Beverley, and Bojan Bogdanovic to Dallas for Powell, Bertans, and Green. If you're Utah, that doesn't get the deal done. If you're Dallas, put it in a sack, throw it over your shoulder. That's a highway robbery. Let's get out of here, right? You got to get out of town before you're on one of those most wanted posters in the wild, wild west. That's a steal for Dallas. It's a great deal for Dallas. If you can get Beverley and Bogdanovich, who is an excellent three-point shooter, guy who would really play well alongside Luka, and I'm sure Luka would like the defensive intensity of Patrick Beverley. But if you're Utah, you're trying to rebuild Powell, Bertans, Green. If Green lived up to that first-round status, okay, maybe, but he's a bust, and I think he's a stiff. Daniel, with this one, I'm surprised that the Mavericks have not made any contact with Colin Sexton. Producer Coop, I know you're somewhat surprised by it too.
Yeah, I mean, Sexton would be a great fit for the Mavs, especially after losing Brunson. You would think they would have, but it sounds like they're not really interested in making that deal.
And I'm not sure if it's a financial thing. I'm not sure if they don't know if he's a fit next to Luka. And I'm not going to say that Colin Sexton is the same player as Jalen Brunson, but, like, can he play that type of role where he's the sidekick? I think he'd be more than viable of being that sidekick next to Luka Doncic for maybe less money than Jalen Brunson. So, Daniel, you're surprised. I'm surprised. Producer Coop, he's surprised as well. Speaking of the Mavericks, if you're a Mavs fan like Daniel or somebody else watching, you can get a Mavs hat by going to chatsports.com/NBA hats. That link available for you in the comment section and the description. Why are you only talking about Dallas? We got other teams' hats as well. How about all 30 in the NBA? If you utilize that link at the bottom of your screen, thanks to today's presenting sponsor, Fanatics. Chatsports.com/NBA hats. That link living in the comment section, hanging out in the description as well. Chatsports.com/NBA hats. Get your hat today for whichever team you rep in the NBA. Lake and bake. Sounds like a really good life. Does it make sense for the Sixers to sign DeMarcus Cousins to back up Joel Embiid? A little bit of sense, but I don't really like it. Joel Embiid, he is a big who can really stretch the floor, put the ball on the floor as well. He can knock down the pull-ups, has the fadeaway J in his pocket, can knock down the three. DeMarcus Cousins used to be a guy who could do some of those things, not in the same way of Embiid, but now he can shoot the three a little bit. But man, he's so slow because of the injury. So on switches, I just think that he'd get burned a lot, and he's never been the greatest rim protector. And then offensively, just isn't the same guy who used to be able to put the ball on the floor just a little bit and create and get his shot. So if it's on the vet men, I'd be entertained by that. You go with Paul Reed as your number 2, DeMarcus Cousins as your number 3 center if you keep 3, but I would probably lean no. Businessman, it's a business, man. If they trade for Mitchell, they must have to trade either Brunson or RJ, right? Well, you can't trade Brunson. You can't trade players right away who you just signed. If it's RJ Barrett, yeah, he's certainly atop the list for Utah in terms of the players that they'd love to bring in and a guy who they can build around, a very good two-way wing. Other options on top of or separate from RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin, Emmanuel Quickly, Quentin Grimes, there's that, and it's a bunch of picks as well that the Knicks still have in the chamber. Where will D-Mitch play in 2022? Let us know in the comment section. J for the Jazz, O for a different team. And if you type O for other, let us know which team you think Mitchell will play on this upcoming season. Edu David, hi Chase, hey man, can the Kings make the playoffs next year? Look, there are going to be some surprise teams in the NBA this upcoming year. And if you think about like some of the lower level teams in the NBA, there's still teams that I want to watch. I want to watch Keegan Murray and some of the other players on the Kings. I want to watch what the Magic can do, what the Houston Rockets are going to bring to the floor, the Detroit Pistons. Like some of these bad teams, they're going to be bad record-wise because the NBA and the talent level is as deep as it's been in a really long time. Can one of those teams become Cleveland from last year and make the NBA play-in tournament, or like Charlotte did a couple of years ago? Maybe. Could the Kings be one of those squads? It's never really been, or not always been, about a lack of talent with Sacramento. Dysfunctional environment. With the new regime, though, could that change? Local Sheer Douglas, he's a big Joe Douglas fan and a Jets fan, I imagine. Don't you think the Spurs won the Hawks trade since the Hawks are taking a massive gamble on DJ pushing them? Additionally, them getting 2 protected picks, Spurs are setting up for Wembanyama. That's been my take for a little while, that San Antonio, who loves international prospects, who they've been really just an average basketball team over the last couple of years, are looking to tank for Victor Wembanyama, who's been talked about as being the best NBA draft prospect since LeBron James. So I think they might be tanking. And by trading away DeJounte Murray, yeah, you're resetting to a certain degree. I mean, he by far and away was the best player on the team. Now, if the Hawks have a lot of success with Murray, they win the trade. If San Antonio can use those assets to move up and select Victor Wembanyama and he ends up being a great player, then yeah, you have a point there for sure, local. Sammy slaps. Sammy slips, too. At this point, shouldn't the Lakers trade Talen Horton-Tucker? I think the Talen Horton-Tucker just isn't all that good. I keep waiting for THT to break out. The Lakers keep telling me and keep trying to sell me on Talen Horton-Tucker being a good player, and he has certainly shown some flashes throughout his career. But last year, had a great opportunity to really prove his worth after getting that contract worth more than $30 million, and he didn't. So if you can trade him away and you can get a good asset back and in the process clear up some money on a team that is somewhat cap-strapped, then yeah, I would certainly do that and trade away THT. Last question on this mailbag for you. After you asked me a bunch of questions, I got to return the favor. Best player in the Summer League so far. Who has it been? Let me know. I've talked about a couple of these guys throughout our shows, but it's your opportunity to be a part of the show, so do that right now. We'll give you some shout-outs here. Seems as though the comment section doing pretty well. Nike is elite. Luke Byrne, Aaron, calling somebody a weirdo. Ryan Blackman, Lakers. Speed Demon, he said people are just mad at the world. Use the word John. Good usage of John right there. Rumble, he's a bust and a stiff. Danny A, looks as though people are going after Vito Santana, and is Vito Santana returning the favor? We have a duel in the chat. Keegan Murray, Rookie of the Year from K. Ingram. I don't think that's crazy to say. I think he could play really well. Christopher, I'd go with Cole Swider. Pretty solid player. He's tall. He can shoot the three. What'd you say? Yeah. Yeah, no sex bot. They've been eliminated, at least over the last couple of shows. So, what's up? About to talk Dubs? Yeah? Nah. You a little tipsy after those fires?
Oh, yeah. I took about 30 minutes.
Nuh-uh, for real? Attaboy.
Huh? No, I'm going in my car.
Yeah, I got you. By the way, I'll get you updated on our sub count here on our main Chat Sports YouTube channel. We're 50 people away from 318,000 subs. If we get there by the end of the show, which is approaching, then we're going to bring like the entire office on to have some drinks. So subscribe. We got to get to 318K in order to do that. We need 50 new subs. So just hit that red sub button right now. In the meantime, we're going to talk about the Golden State Warriors. That's what's coming up right now. This is Golden State Warriors Today by Chat Sports. Chase Senior here with you. We begin today's show with this. According to reports, the Warriors, and this will make a lot of people happy in Dub Nation, are reluctant to trade away any of their young players in a deal that would bring in Kevin Durant. As for who those young players are, we've talked about these young guns on this roster and the benefit of keeping them on the team while still winning NBA championships, building for now as well as the future. We're talking Jordan Poole, James Wiseman, Jonathan Kuminga, as well as Moses Moody. And this is part of the genius of general manager Bob Myers, who, even with winning 4 NBA championships during his tenure, I think is still somewhat overrated as being arguably the best executive in all of basketball, because of how he's able to handle the luxury tax, maneuver the salary cap, but also replenish and reload this roster and keep some of these stars happy. This report coming from Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype about the Warriors not wanting to trade these young guys away. We'll take a look at why they're valuable on this basketball team, giving you the best analysis that any Warriors YouTube channel has to offer, and also the implications of what keeping them means and my thoughts on this subject matter. The Warriors have several young assets on paper, including Jordan Poole, Jonathan Kuminga, James Wiseman, and Moses Moody. But Golden State would be reluctant to give up all these assets in a Kevin Durant trade proposal. And here's what I think Golden State is thinking after winning yet another NBA title and hoisting the Larry O.B., having another parade in San Francisco. You lose Gary Payton II and Otto Porter Jr., notably in free agency. They left for the money that the Warriors weren't willing to pay them. And they certainly earned it. It's not a knock on them. It's being financially responsible if you're the Warriors, and keeping in mind that you're paying a lot of big contracts currently, and you might pay some in the future to Andrew Wiggins and Jordan Poole. Why are the Warriors okay with losing GP2 and Otto Porter Jr., though? And some fans have had a problem with the Warriors' lack of moves in free agency. In my opinion, Golden State sees a path. They have this vision of wanting its young players to step into larger roles, and they have the talent to do so, even if they're young, even on a team that's ready to go back to back. I love the blend of experience, youth, and athleticism, and the Warriors have really done something that's never been done before. They won an NBA championship while still making high-end draft choices throughout the last couple of drafts, and one of them we've barely seen in James Wiseman. Now, as we continue to move forward on today's show, I value your responses, your thoughts, and your opinions, so I want you to get them into the comment section right now. Grade the Warriors' current roster for me as it exists right now from 1 to 100. 1, they're terrible and you're just delusional. 100, the best. Let me know right now in the comment section. Now, here's where keeping Jordan Poole is really valuable for Golden State. Elite level scoring upside, the perfect volume offensive player when either Steph is out because of load management and to keep him healthy for the playoffs, kind of like what the Warriors were able to do last year when he got injured. If he does get injured, then Poole can be that go-to guy. Or when Curry's on the bench, Poole can fill in and be an elite offensive threat. Here's also where Jordan Poole is very valuable. You're going to have to pay him at some point in the future, but he continues to get better on a yearly basis. He's only 23 years old, and down the road in the future, in his late 20s, can he be the future Steph Curry replacement? He certainly has a lot of elements to his game that Curry has. I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying they could fulfill similar roles. Now we pivot to James Wiseman. I'm intrigued by the player. You watch him in NBA Summer League. Game 2, not as good as Game 1, but still had a couple of blocks, took a 3, and looked pretty good. Wiseman, an insanely gifted big who has all-world potential if he's able to stay healthy. That's the big caveat, and that's the big thing where the Warriors front office is holding their breath. He's also a two-way force. High ceiling on both ends. He can be an impact player offensively and defensively with versatility on both ends of the deck. And he adds yet another weapon offensively and defensively as a rim runner, a really good athlete, a shot blocker, what doesn't always show up on the stat sheet, altering shots at the rim and scaring guys into bad shot opportunities, or they have to rush into thing, they have to pass it out to the three-point arc that leads to a turnover, and we know the Warriors thrive in transition. And then offensively, low block, baseline jumper, fadeaway jumper, has the elbow J. If he's able to continue to develop the three-point shot, he can cause some steals with his wingspan as well. That's the value that Wiseman brings to the table. And if you think about this Warriors championship run over the last near decade, they've never had a big as gifted as James Wiseman. And the owner of this franchise, one of the best in professional sports, he understands that. He sees it. He knows it. He's a real one. He's one of the best owners in the sport for a reason. Here's what he had to say about James Wiseman in Joe Lacob. I will just tell you, I think he has the potential to be an enormously positive addition to the minutes rotation on our team. He is a monster. I've been watching basketball all my life. I have not seen many players do what he can do. Now, the haters will say Wiseman stinks, but that's because of the injuries. The real ones know that Wiseman can really play. I just broke it down. I gave you my thoughts, and we've talked about it a lot here on Warriors Today. If you don't see the ability in James Wiseman, I just don't think you know basketball, frankly. Now, we have a great sub-battle going on here at Chat Sports, as we like to compete just like the Warriors do on the basketball floor. Lakers, Warriors, a great rivalry in the Western Conference in the NBA, an even better rivalry here in the Chat Sports studios. Why is that? Because over the last month, Golden State Warriors Today has picked up nearly 11,000 new subscribers as the largest, best, most consistent, and entertaining and informative Warriors channel on YouTube. You want to stay in the know with all things Dubs? You want videos damn near every single day? Hit that red sub button down below or go to youtube.com/WarriorsTV and let's overtake the Los Angeles Lakers report here at Chat Sports. To Jonathan Kuminga now and his value to this team. All the makings of being a legit number 2 on a title team if he develops. That's like best case scenario. I'm talking Jaylen Brown type of player. Athleticism, it wows you on both sides of the deck, offensively and defensively, because this guy has so much ability. And like Jordan Poole, like James Wiseman, part of the craziness of what Bob Myers has been able to maneuver, he too, very young. He too, a teenager, only 19 years old, and the Jaylen Brown comps are real, especially when you watch what he was able to do on Tuesday night in the NBA Summer League. Bad debut at the end of last week, redeemed himself against San Antonio, really good in back-to-back games against the Spurs and Celtics. 29 points, 11 of 22 from the field, 2 of 7 from 3. That's okay. He's just trying to work on the three-point shot, and the in-game reps are very important. A steal and a block, too. This guy can just be an excellent player on both ends of the floor, and he's certainly shown those flashes throughout his NBA career in one single season. I'm in the moody to talk about Moses Moody. Moody, the last guy who we have to talk about as far as one of the young guns on this team. Do you like my singing? Let me know. If you don't, let me know. Moody can be a very reliable three-point shooter coming in off the bench, and that too, very, very important for a championship-level team. To have that depth, to have guys who can fulfill certain roles throughout the regular season. We saw Moody really play well when the Warriors were resting some guys, and he was able to get some good burn in the playoffs, had a couple of decent moments, and in the Summer League. He's been somewhat up and down, somewhat Jekyll and Hyde, but I'm confident that Moody can also be a good player, partially because of the Warriors player development program. So before we get out of here on today's particular show, who is the best Warriors young player? We just talked about all of them here on the show. Let me know in the comment section, drop a name, and we appreciate you for supporting the program. Warriors best young player. Who is it? People are still beefing in the comment section right now. Things are getting ugly. What's going on here? Danny A, Vito Santana, Chalk Glock. Is he flashing the Glock in the comment section? No advice, please. Keep it nice. Whatever you want. Yeah. If we have enough questions, we can do that. Doing mailbag next? Another mailbag coming your way, and then we'll talk about the Dallas Mavericks. And then we'll go live exclusively on Rumble. We had one super chat come in from the homie, Lion Fighter. We're going to do another mailbag. You want to send in a super chat? We guarantee you we'll answer your question. If you want to ask a question, you just got to use the hashtag NBA. That function, 100% free. So mailbag time here on the show, hashtag NBA, super chat. Get those questions in right now. And keep it nice in the comments section. My goodness. Had nearly 500 people, or more than 500 people, watching us just a little while ago. Good numbers on a Wednesday, slight work. We're going to continue that slight work as the Cut Daddies right now. Coming your way on NBA Now by Chat Sports, another mailbag where we take your questions during our live show, as we've been going live pretty much every single day of NBA free agency. If you want the best year-round coverage on the National Basketball Association, news, rumors, breaking news, really creative and innovative segments, the best digital coverage on the entire internet, just subscribe to the channel or head to youtube.com/chatsportstv. Luke Byrne, does A.J. Lawson land on an NBA squad? Yeah, he's a Mavericks guy who we talked about in Jaden Hardy's debut. Everybody was talking about Hardy. He actually looked pretty good. Length, some scoring ability. I like the athleticism. I think he has an opportunity to maybe compete for a Mavericks roster spot. Does he land a two-way contract, Coop? I think it could happen.
Yeah, I think he could definitely get a two-way. At worst, he'll get a camp invite for some NBA team, hopefully the Mavs.
Yeah, I just think if you want to better your team, you bring in a guy like that who's like a borderline NBA player, because in practice, you want a guy who's active like that and is feisty. Jeff Stamps, do you think the Nuggets could make a good push for Donovan Mitchell, and would it be a good fit? Who are you giving up, right? Michael Porter Jr.? If you're Utah back a couple years ago, you might ask for MPJ, but the back injuries were the biggest concern when he was entering the draft. If it wasn't for that, he may have been the number one overall player in that respective draft class. And now you're not going to trade away Jamal Murray coming off the torn ACL. You're, of course, not going to trade the Joker. So which assets do you have to give up? Bones Highland is a player who has some upside, but again, he doesn't move the needle all that much. Future draft capital, you have to expect if you're Utah, the Nuggets are going to be a good team, so those picks are going to be in the 20s. So I do not think that's realistic, but I do appreciate the question, Jeff. Rainman43, could you see Luka Doncic ever requesting a trade out of Dallas? Look, you can't rule anything out in nowadays NBA where there are frequent trade requests. Superstars often get disgruntled. They want to change the scenery. Shoot, Kevin Durant, a year after signing that max extension with Brooklyn, requests a trade, and now he might not play for the Nets. And in the span of a calendar year, you go from having KD, Kyrie, and James Harden to not having any of them. So Luka Doncic, if he gets frustrated in the future with the Mavericks' lack of team success, obviously making it to the Western Conference Finals this past year was huge for him, proving himself as one of the game's best, but also that franchise and keeping him happy, then, you can never rule anything out in the craziness of professional sports. If you're Dallas, though, you lose Jalen Brunson, you got to find that co-star for Luka. That's the biggest job for Mark Cuban over the next couple of years. It's find that legit number 2 for Luka Doncic, and right now, they don't have it with Brunson bolting. Grade the Mavs off season so far. I gave them like a B minus because I like the JaVale McGee signing, and I'm hoping that they're going to make some other moves. Maybe I should have gone C. Maybe I'm wrong. Either way, you can let your voices be heard and give the Mavs a grade right now in the comment section. Robert Bruce, the homie. Hello, Chase, Harrison, Mitch, Tom, Marshall, Brett, Jeff, Jackson, Trace, Coop. You're the man, Robert. We appreciate the positivity. Who's Jackson, by the way? I'm not sure. Oh, Jackson Lauderay. That's good stuff. My goodness. He knows the Chat Sports crew even better than I do because I forgot that Jack was Jackson. Let's see. This is his question. Do you think Malcolm Brogdon will take the point guard position right away, or will he back up Marcus Smart? If you acquire Malcolm Brogdon, he's going to be, I believe, the starter. Although, look, if you want to move forward with Marcus Smart as your starting PG, that would surprise me, but obviously, Boston likes him. He was really good last year, Defensive Player of the Year. I just thought in the playoffs, they kind of missed that primary ball handler who's that true experienced point guard. Smart is not that. Makes good decisions, makes bad decisions sometimes too with the basketball. So maybe Marcus Smart off the bench, but if it's Brogdon, I don't know. Boston's thinking they could go with Marcus Smart as a starter and Brogdon coming in off the bench. I'm interested to see what happens there. Mr. Clean 999. Chase, you think the Cavs can land Donovan Mitchell? In a sign-and trade for Colin Sexton, maybe. Year 2, Colin Sexton was a good player, averaged about 20 points per game. Year 3, it went up to 24 points per game. If you're Utah and you think that you can build around Colin Sexton, which the jury is certainly out there in terms of points per game production, pretty similar when he's healthy, when he's right, as compared to Donovan Mitchell. As Mitchell, throughout 5 years in the NBA, floating around 25 points per game, Sexton does have that ability. Does he elevate his teammates? Yeah, maybe not as much as a prototypical point guard, but does D-Mitch elevate his teammates? I'm not sure if he's like that primary distributor. So you find a way to bring in Colin Sexton as part of a sign-and trade. It all comes down to the basketball evaluation for Utah. Now make sure you turn on your notifications here at Chat Sports. Look, cover the NBA a lot here at Chat Sports, but also we're your home for the best NFL coverage. And with training camp coming up in just a couple of weeks, we're going to start to ramp up our NFL coverage and college football as well. So you don't want to miss anything that we're doing, anything that we're cooking up, whether it be a video on demand as we pump out multiple per day, or a live show as we go live a couple times per week. So make sure you turn on those notifications. Therefore, when we do push out a video or go live, you'll be notified. How do you do it? You go to the settings app, scroll down, tap YouTube, tap notifications, and then turn on allow notifications. Therefore, you'll stay in the know with everything that we're doing. Max McNeil. Should the Celtics bring back Dennis Schroeder? I don't think it makes a lot of sense. I think they traded him away for a reason. They realized that this guy was trying to increase his value to land a big deal in NBA free agency, and as of this recording on Wednesday, hasn't happened yet. So they were cool with getting rid of him to bring back Daniel Tice, and that's pretty telling that Dennis Schroeder couldn't hold on to a roster spot, or the Celtics didn't want him. The Lakers were happy that he turned down that $84 million contract extension because he didn't sign it, and then they didn't re-sign him in free agency. Does Houston bring him back? He has value certainly as a six-man scorer. I don't think he has value, or the Celtics want him in Boston. Jay Fish, can the Suns get Kevin Durant? Yes. Do the Nets want DeAndre Ayton? No. that is really the domino. And if they don't want DeAndre Ayton, they don't think that he can be a franchise pillar, then they're not going to trade away Devin Booker. They're not going to trade away Chris Paul. Can you put together a package of Ayton, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and some future picks? I think that's a decent haul for Brooklyn. I also kind of like what Brooklyn's been able to do in free agency. Obviously, you don't have that star, but if you can get a star, that's a pretty legit, well-rounded roster. Jordan Fallen, do you think that KD could go to the Lakers or the Trailblazers? No chance for the Lakers. For the Trailblazers, again, it comes down to assets. Jeremy Grant, Shaedon Sharpe, although he's getting shoulder surgery, so he's going to miss some time in the NBA Summer League. He's out for the remainder of it. Future draft picks. I know everybody got really excited about that edit with KD and Dame, but I just don't think it's really all that realistic. Would I like to see it? Yeah, KD and Dame would be a lot of fun. Both Nike guys, too, where the Nike headquarters is near in the Pacific Northwest where they have a massive following. But I just don't think it's realistic in the Lakers. They don't have any assets to give up unless it's Anthony Davis. Who will Kevin Durant play for next year? We just talked about him, so you let us know right now in the comment section. Predict KD's next destination right now in the comments. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility either that he goes back to Brooklyn. Bound 77G, who should the Lakers focus on signing? Put all your eggs in the Kyrie Irving basket and try to bring him in. It makes the team better. Get rid of Russell Westbrook. Kyrie would be cheaper and younger. I understand that people have concerns about Kyrie in the future, but with LeBron about to be 38 in December, you don't care about the future. F them picks, right? Who cares about those picks in 2025 and 2027? You're trying to win right now. Jake the Snake, 69. Is this my boy Jake Brown? With Draymond Green having 2 years left on his deal, Golden State should trade for Ben Simmons to start grooming him in that role. Now, I've said this about Ben Simmons. I think for him, he would benefit from forgetting about wanting to be a point guard in this league. I think those days have come and gone, and frankly, I don't think that's where he's valued the most because point guards, in my opinion, they need to be able to hit free throws, and they need to be able to stretch the floor to a certain degree, and Ben Simmons does neither well. He's actually unwilling to shoot the basketball. So Simmons in a Draymond Green type of role intrigues me a lot because he's an excellent defender, all-NBA defender too, by the way. And that's the last time that we saw him, that year, 2 years ago. He was an all-NBA defender. Unbelievable vision, good screener and roller, pick and pop guy who can hang out in that dunker spot, can pass from the low post or the high post like Draymond. And this guy is a really smart basketball player. As far as him going to the Warriors, doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, it's interesting that Draymond Green has 2 years left on his deal. What's going to happen in the future? How does he age? And does Golden State pay him once more, probably for past production instead of future production? Something to keep an eye on. I like Simmons in the Draymond Green role. I don't think the Warriors make a play for him. The NFL Kid, thoughts on not my favorite team, but my hometown team, the Charlotte Hornets. The NFL Kid, we know you're always repping Charlotte. Respect to you for showing out for the hometown. Somewhat of a bad and ugly free agency period for them, all because of Bridges. What's going to happen with Bridges? And they have a lot of money left now. If they decide to not offer him a contract, but unfortunately for them, there aren't a lot of other options out there in terms of top-tier guys in free agency. So LaMelo Ball, that max contract extension, it is looming in the future. And if you're Charlotte, what are you selling him on? Selling him on Steve Clifford? That's a little bit of a problem. So a little bit of a concern moving forward. Subscribe to us here at Chat Sports for interactive mailbags like this where we allow you to join the conversation and drive the conversation, but also live shows, updates, breaking news, the best news and rumors. We have you covered here at Chat Sports. Show us some love and subscribe. Going to talk about the Mavericks next, but first, in between segments, where will KD play next year? Let us know right now. I'll give you some shout-outs. Devontae Graham got arrested too. He's playing for the Pelicans, though. So, not for the Hornets any longer. Used to play for the Hornets. Jordan Fallen, he's getting that question in. Aaron, crying emojis. People still beefing in the chat? My goodness, it's getting hostile in here. All right, we ready to talk about the Dallas Mavericks? Let's talk about the Dallas Mavericks right now as we buzz through the show. Welcome into Dallas Mavericks Today by Chat Sports. Chase Senior here with you. Hope all of the MFFLs are having a fantastic week. As always, we have a great show on tap for you today as we get you caught up with the latest Dallas Mavericks news and rumors. And we start off with this tweet from Callie Kaplan. She said this about the Mavs meeting with the New York Knicks and their failure to complete a sign-and trade for Jalen Brunson. Mavs met with the Knicks brass multiple times this week in Las Vegas, including a dinner, to talk about a sign-and trade, but it was always unlikely because the Mavs had little leverage beyond possible NBA penalties coming for tampering, like producer Coop is calling for. Now Jalen Brunson is going to leave for nothing. That is official. So he's going to sign that deal that is worth around $104 million, which makes him one of the highest paid point guards in the NBA. Now, as far as the Mavs' plan and what they've done so far this offseason, I like the signing of JaVale McGee. Outside of that, what's going on with this team and what is their direction a year after they made a run to the Western Conference Finals and won a playoff series for the first time going back to 2011 when Dirk Nowitzki was dethroning the Miami Heat dynasty? I'm not really sure what the Mavs are trying to do here. Not hitting up the Cleveland Cavaliers? About Colin Sexton, you don't have a backup plan B in which you had weeks and months to plan for in case Brunson left because the paper trail of him going to New York was there for a little while, and it goes back to Donnie Nelson not giving him the extra year on that deal. So I'm kind of unhappy and I'm unfrustrated with what Dallas is doing and their lack of planning moving ahead. Year one of the Nico Harrison, Jason Kidd tenure got off to a really good start, but going into year two, still a lot of looming questions. Now, as for the offensive moves, or off-season moves, you add to the offense, I should say, by bringing in Christian Wood, who can play the 4, he can play the 5 as a big, who can shoot the 3 ball, kind of like Kristaps Porzingis, but I actually might like Christian Wood's game a little bit more because I don't have the injury concerns of KP. And then JaVale McGee, you needed a rim protector, you needed to bulk up your defensive front court, you needed a rim runner. That was a hole on this team throughout the playoffs, and you were able to fulfill that need. 3 years, $20 million for JaVale McGee. We move forward on today's show. Tim Cato of The Athletic saying this about what the Mavericks are going to do with their rotation and their starting lineup. Jason Kidd has declared that Spencer Dinwiddie and JaVale McGee will be the starters, joining incumbent starters Luka Doncic and Dorian Finney-Smith. I've been told the team's planning to keep Reggie Bullock as the 5th starter. As things currently stand, though, the team's splashiest acquisition this summer, Christian Wood, will come in off the bench. This would be the Mavericks' nearest facsimile of the starting lineup that brought them postseason success: 2 playmaking guards, 2 3-and-D wings, and a tone-setting center who plays fewer minutes than his counterparts off the bench. Lastly, Dinwiddie replaces Brunson, and McGee takes over for Dwight Powell, who started 89 of this past season's 100 games, but averaged fewer minutes than Kristaps Porzingis and Maxi Kleber. So we talked about this earlier this week. The Mavericks roster right now might be a little bit deeper, but is it better as compared to last year? You're replacing Jalen Brunson up to this point with Spencer Dinwiddie, so the thinking makes sense, but will Dinwiddie as a starter work, and will Christian Wood buy in, a guy who, with Houston, there were some rumblings about him being unhappy with his usage and his role. As for what Mark Cuban said about losing Jalen Brunson, speaking on this really for the first time, at least publicly, bringing back Timmy Hardaway, who was hurt the whole time, and adding Christian Wood, I think will replace that scoring pretty easily. But my concern here isn't necessarily the lack of scoring production. It's what Jalen Brunson gives you. It's the fact that you stole him in the second round as a guy who fell to you. You failed to give him that extra year, which is notable. And also, you could have given him a contract last offseason or during this year and given him a deal worth around $20 million in average annual value, let's say 3 years, 60. You're saving $44 million compared to the asking price. So if you say so, Cubes, look, you've won 1 championship. I support you as an owner. You've done some good things, but some of the things you say and the star players who you lose out on, it's a little bit problematic, and understandably so. That's why Mavericks fans are frustrated. Up to this point, how would you grade the Mavs off season? It continues to fluctuate, and as the days go by, you're like, is another move going to happen, or is Dinwiddie going to be the starter for JB? A, B, C, D, or F? Let us know. Now we want to pivot to Goran Dragic. Did he turn down Dallas because Dallas disrespected him? He goes to the Chicago Bulls. He's going to back up Lonzo Ball if healthy. But at this point, Dragic is a competitor. He's played in a lot of NBA playoff series, NBA Finals back a couple years ago with Miami, a lot of big international games with Slovenia. He wants to play more. Here's the problem. Didn't sign with the Mavs because they weren't going to offer him as many minutes as Chicago. Translated from Slovenian, I wasn't going to try to translate it myself. We were in talks with Dallas, Dragic said. They made an offer, but I decided not to take it. They wanted me to play one game and then sit for the next 5. I know I can still easily play 20 minutes per game. I'm not ready to retire and just sit on the bench in a cheerleading role. So me saying Dragic, the utmost competitor, clearly his competitive nature factored into these contract negotiations. And if you're Dallas, why would you disrespect him like that? You brought in Marjanovic, Boban, because he's Luka's friend. Why not bring in a better player in Goran Dragic who could actually have a role on this team as compared to Boban and make Luka Doncic happy in the process? Mavs likely felt that Dragic was and is what he was in Brooklyn, where he averaged 7 points per game, little less than 5 assists, and the shooting numbers not good at all. Now, could Dragic put up these numbers with Chicago and it end up being a win? For Dallas, certainly, but I actually think that Dragic was a better player in there. It was just a mess in Brooklyn all throughout the year. Still need someone who can handle the rock. You can talk about Dinwiddie as the starting point guard. Who's going to be the backup starting point guard? Who is going to handle primary ball handling responsibilities? At some point, you want to take some of the burden off of Luka Doncic. And if he's off the floor, you're going to have to rush to get him back into the game if nobody can handle the rock. As for available point guards on the free agency market, my goodness, slim pickings here. DJ Augustine, who's been washed for a couple of years. Campazzo, I kind of like him. Played internationally, had a lot of success last year with Denver. I watched him. I'm like, yo, he's got some wiggle for sure. Ryan Arcidiacono, kind of a journeyman NBA player up to this point. Championship pedigree from his days at Villanova. And then Chris Dunn, who has never reached those expectations of being that former first-round pick in the lottery. So, name a point guard you want the Mavericks to sign. Any of these guys, let me know. A different guy who we missed, let us know, because that helps us with some of our show planning moving forward. And while you're down there, subscribe to the channel. Mavericks Today. My boy Harrison Graham is going to be back at some point, but right now he's eating fine meats, cheeses, and some good pasta in Italy. YouTube.com/MavsTV. We're bringing you the best Mavericks coverage. We round out with this. Could the Mavericks trade for Donovan Mitchell? Should the Mavs trade for Jordan Clarkson or Malik Beasley? If the Jazz blow it up, is the D-Mitch trade going to happen? There are all these rumors, and look, somewhat unrealistic for sure. But we know that crazy things happen in the NFL and the NBA because it is a booming business right now. Now, Donovan Mitchell might be a little bit unlikely. Jordan Clarkson, if the Jazz blow it up, could be a little bit more likely. And his scoring punch off the bench would basically give you what Spencer Dinwiddie did last year, where in a couple of big playoff games, he was awesome. 16 points per game last year, always going to be in the running for winning Sixth Man of the Year, 2.5 assists, 41.9% from the floor, and just a decent three-point shooter. Very inconsistent, but that's why he's a sixth man. As for Malik Beasley, last year got a little bit cold, but he has shown that he can be a pretty solid player. 20 points per game, 45.5% from the floor, 41% from three. Effective field goal percentage here, Sam, 56%. So Malik Beasley, pretty good player and scorer from 2019 to 2021. And if you get that production, that's pretty good numbers right there. And you don't have to give up a ton for Beasley or Clarkson. As for this trade idea and really what sparked the conversation, it's coming from SI.com. Mavericks receive Jordan Clarkson, Malik Beasley. Jazz receive Tim Hardaway Jr., Davis Bertans, and a future first-round pick. Now, I don't know if I want to squander a first-round pick, and honestly, you know, Tim Hardaway Jr. can basically be that role of Jordan Clarkson. Malik Beasley is the win there because he's better than Davis Bertans and has more value throughout a regular season and playoff run. As for Clarkson and Beasley, they'd be great additions, but this is pennies on the dollar for Utah. That's really what it comes down to, and I'm not sure that this trade is going to happen. But what do you think? Would you do it if you were Mark Cuban, you know, living in Highland Park, kicking it, Nico Harrison as well? Would you make this trade? Y for yes, N for no? Let us know. I would not do it if I'm Dallas because Tim Hardaway Jr., basically the same guy as Jordan Clarkson. So those are my thoughts on this. You let us know your thoughts in the comment section right now. Subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/MavsTV. We're going to continue to pump out the best Mavericks coverage, whether it's me or Harrison Graham, keeping you in the know year-round with all things going down with the Dallas Mavericks. really intriguing and interesting position this franchise finds itself in after making it to the Western Conference Finals and their big loss of Jalen Brunson this offseason. About to go live on Rumble exclusively. We hope you all join us. Rumble.com/NBA Now. The link is down below. So plug it into a separate tab and join us on Rumble exclusively, which is coming up right now. Rumble.com/NBA Now. As for what we're talking about on the Rumble side of things, we're going to be talking about some Donovan Mitchell trade ideas, and that will round out our live coverage of the NBA. So to all of you who watched us on YouTube, we greatly appreciate that. You see the link down below. Come hang out with us on Rumble, and because they don't censor us, maybe we'll even let a